I didn't expect it to be so uncomfortable.
And so the whole time that I'm sitting there in this tube thing,
Kept charging and charging and charging it.
I never want to have an MRI again.
I was feeling something energetically and it was uncomfortable.
Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I have never done a video like this before. So, since I find YouTube videos about these kinds of procedures and these kinds of experiences helpful, thank you to all the women who have contributed before me to my understanding of what's happening and what to expect, I thought that I would also contribute one of my own. That is what brings me here today. They discovered that I had fibroids. I had at least 2, potentially 3, and they were also able to determine that the fibroids, and I'm not sure whether they're on the inside of the uterus or on the outside of the uterus, but in any case, they were large enough to be displacing my ovaries. So I've got some stuff going on in my uterus that we need to get a better look at. So that's what we're doing. Today, I am going to the hospital, I think, to get an MRI. The MRI is the first step, and then I will also be getting a hysteroscopy. The MRI uses a magnet and radio frequency signals to take a picture of your pelvis, and then the hysteroscopy will be going inside with a camera and looking at your uterus from the inside. So with those 2 imaging modalities, they should have an exact location for the fibroids, where the fibroids are, what they're doing, and what our treatment plan is going to be. Today is the MRI day, and I am talking to you from my car because, true to Miami's reputation, there is a ton of traffic. Am I anxious for the MRI? Yes, that is definitely. And I did watch some videos last night to kind of see what it's like, what's going to happen in there, and if anyone had ever done a video vlog style for the MRI that I'm getting. And I did find, a couple, and I found a lot of professional ones where they let you listen to the sound and tell you basically what's going to happen. You get a little locker thing. I got some good advice. This is specifically for a pelvic MRI, to not eat 2 hours before the exam, not eat or drink anything 2 hours before the exam, because they can see the activity that's happening. I'm sure they're still going to be able to see activity happening because I did eat this morning and I drank water up until 2 hours before I had to get the exam done. So they're still going to see something, but hopefully that'll reduce some mobility in there. The other thing that I did was wear loose clothing. So I'm wearing a nice little sundress here. And I suppose that's just so that you can change easily in and out of your gown, because it's not like I'm wearing this when I go in. One of the questions that I will have for them is, I am on my cycle today, and so I'm going to ask them if I should use any menstrual products while I'm in there, if that would affect it at all. It might not, like, who knows? I have no idea what they see and these things, so, but we'll see. Wish me luck. I am nervous. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that when I get back. I'm done. I survived. The IV was probably the least concerning thing about the entire experience. It was terrible. I hated it. I never want to have an MRI again. I am so glad they did not do my head. It didn't hurt at all. And it wasn't the loudness, it was just the energy of the things. I don't know, I felt like a battery that was being charged up, but I had nowhere to put all that energy, and then I couldn't move on top of that, and so it was just like, I don't know, it was terrible. It was like some sort of sci-fi torture chamber. I still feel that energy. I still feel like I just want to clench all of my muscles and just get it out. I don't know. It was just, and then there were different kinds too. So there would be bop 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 like that, and that would feel like one thing, and then there'd be dee 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 dee, and then it would feel like another thing, and it was just it was not pleasant. And I only had to be in there for a half hour, thank goodness. And kind of the saving grace of the whole thing was that she told me that they put the IV in, but they didn't put the dye in yet. She told me that they were going to put me in, they were going to do, you know, a session, and then they were going to take me out, put the dye in, and do another session. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, 30 minutes, so 15 minutes for one session, and then 15 minutes for the other session. And so the whole time that I'm sitting there in this tube thing, I'm just like, it's got to be at least 5 minutes. It's got to be at least 5 minutes. Okay, it's got to be at least 7 minutes. Okay, it's got to be at least 7 minutes. Okay, now we're definitely past 10 minutes. And so I'm just like hoping for this 15-minute mark that I'm hoping for. And then it starts to get to the point where I'm like, I don't know that I can go through this again. I don't know if, like, once they take me out and put the dye in me, that I can do this long again. Because I was thinking that the session was going to be just as long as the one I was going through. Just kept laying there. I kept being still, and I kept breathing deeply and hoping for the best. And she finally took me out to put the dye in. But she told me before she took me out to put the dye in that there was only going to be 2 more sessions after they put the dye in. So it was going to be much faster. And then luckily during those 2 sessions with the dye in, she told me to take deep breaths and hold my breath while that was going on, and that actually kind of helped, like, because I don't know, it just made me feel like, you know, I was warding off some of this whatever energy it was. Anyway, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna look at, like, what the heck those things do to you. The energy of it, I don't know. I'm sure, like, an acupuncturist is probably like aghast at this thing. Like, it probably, like, disrupts all the meridians in your body or something. And like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just, like, extremely sensitive to that. But oh gosh, I cannot imagine ever doing that for my head. In fact, I don't know that I ever want to do that again. And maybe, like, if I do it again, it's going to be in, like, 10-minute sessions only. Like, if you want 30 minutes, like, you're going to have to knock me out or sedated. Yeah, I would do it sedated if I could shut my brain off. Clearly, it was thinking just as fast as I'm talking right now. So I'm gonna go home now, and then I'm gonna eat food because I'm very hungry. Actually, I'm not too hungry, but I need to drink a lot of water to make sure that I flush all the ink out. Talk more about this when we get home. So thanks for watching. I'll catch up with you soon.
By the way, the drive home was super fast. I was going against traffic because I was driving into Miami as opposed to away from Miami, like most other people are probably trying to do at 5:30 in the afternoon. So that was great. The first thing I did when I got back home was research what the heck an MRI is doing inside that, what is it doing to you when it's inside that tube? Because I did not do that beforehand. And here's why. So I've heard of people getting MRIs. It seems like all the time. It seems like half the people I've met have had an MRI. And it just doesn't really seem like it's a big deal. Like, I don't really feel like anybody ever has said anything really negative about it. So I didn't expect it to be such a unpleasant experience, because it just seems like something that's almost routine in, like, any kind of diagnostic sort of situation. So I was like, yeah, okay, it's this thing that takes pictures of you, kind of like an x-ray does. I've had x-rays taken before, and those are fine. Like, I don't feel anything when I'm getting an x-ray. When you go through those big machines at the airport, I don't feel anything when that's happening. It's kind of what I expected the MRI to be like. I expected the MRI to be like, sure, loud noises. Everybody talks about the loud noises, but I didn't expect it to be so uncomfortable. And the part that I was the most anxious about was the IV, because my MRI was with and without contrast, which means that for part of the MRI, I would not have any ink in my system. And then for what I thought was the second half, which ended up being just a small portion of the MRI, they would inject dye into my vein, and then they would take pictures with the dye inside. And that would give them a different kind of contrast that they could use in their screening. So I thought this is going to be go into a big tube, take pictures, and the most painful part of this was going to be the IV. And so before I even went into the tube, they put the IV like starter thing in me, so that all they had to do was pull me out for a second, attach the ink to the IV that was already inserted, and then they would push the ink through. I would go back into the tube, and la-di-da, all done. I thought that was going to be the worst part of the MRI. And that was not the worst part of the MRI. And I'm not claustrophobic. It had nothing to do with the confined space that I was in. It had to do with what I was feeling from the machine. It wasn't so much a physical feeling. It was a physical feeling, but it was an energetic kind of feeling. And it was super, super uncomfortable. So as soon as I got home, looked up, what the heck is happening? Because I knew going into, I'd done enough research to know going into an MRI is part magnet and part radio frequency signals. That can't be that bad. Magnets are around us all the time. This is just a really strong one. So I didn't really think anything of those two things being put together. But then obviously I had the experience I had, and I came home here to research what is going on in an MRI. And so basically what I found is that the magnets in an MRI are creating an electromagnetic field that's actually like 100 times greater. Let me double check this. The electromagnetic field is, let's just say it's greater than the Earth's magnetic field. Okay, so that's a lot. It is 100 times stronger. So your brain and your heart also create electromagnetic fields. And then the MRI creates its own electromagnetic field. And the MRI's electromagnetic field is actually stronger than the Earth's magnetic field. How could you not feel that? We are so used to being in electromagnetic fields that if something is disrupting it, especially at that level, that seems like it would make sense that you would feel it. So that's one aspect, and the reason why they do that is to get all of your atoms in all of your cells pointed in the same direction. And one of the things that they pointed out was that in your normal day-to-day life, when you're not having an MRI, your cells are going about their business, doing their thing, and their atoms are going any which way that they think that they should go. And then you get into this electromagnetic field that all of a sudden makes all of your atoms in all of your cells point the same direction. And the reason why they do that is because it's how they take pictures. But just think about that. Just think about like every single cell in your body, all of a sudden, its atoms are pointing the same way. They're basically being torn from whatever path they were on, doing whatever they were doing, and just all of a sudden, now they all have to point the same way. Okay, so I think you would feel that. Yeah, it makes sense that you would feel that somehow. And then the next part is the radio frequency signals, I guess, are in the range of 100 to 10,000 hertz. The radio frequency signals are the pulses. That's the loud noise that you're hearing. And that's how they see things. So your atoms are all pointing in the same direction. So then the pulses come through, and that's what gives the images. It's much more technical than that. The MRI machine applies a radio frequency pulse that is specific only to hydrogen. The system directs the pulse towards the area of the body they want to examine. When the pulse is applied, the unmatched protons absorb the energy and spin in a different direction. This is the resonance part of the MRI. So, all your atoms are being forced to point in a certain way. And then, this radio frequency, apparently, it sounds like it bounces off free protons in your cells and creates a resonance. And it truly is a resonance. That word is the perfect word for what I was feeling, a resonance, and a resonance that I did not like. I just didn't expect it to have quite that much sensation. If you've ever been in a situation where you cannot move a certain body part and you all of a sudden have this like intense desire to move it, and you know you shouldn't and you can't, but it's like your entire, like let's say it was your arm, it's like your entire arm was just full of energy, and almost like you have an irresistible desire to move it, and you're physically stopping yourself from doing it, and it's almost painful. It was like that, times like 20. It was also this feeling of like I was a battery that was being charged. So like this thing was pumping energy into me as if I was a battery like being recharged, but it was like overfilling me as the battery. So it kept charging and charging and charging, and I was like, I need to release this energy. I need to go somewhere, but I couldn't move and had to stay still. So it was like those two sensations combined, and obviously I did stay still and I was able to handle it, but it was a lot. It was a lot mentally to have to deal with, and it does make sounds, very loud sounds. And probably the magnet feels the same the whole time, but the radio frequency, I think, is the thing that's making the sounds. I could be wrong. I'm not a doctor or a technician, so I don't know if this is accurate or not. But the radio frequency makes different sounds, and different sounds have different sensations. I was feeling something energetically, and it was uncomfortable. I tried to find stuff on the internet about this kind of phenomenon that I experienced in the machine, and I could barely find anything. I just found these two articles, and they kind of almost repeated themselves, saying the exact same thing. So I found a yoga article that suggests you should do meditation afterwards because the MRI creating this electromagnetic field probably like just disrupts everything that you're going through, and you need to recenter yourself and refocus yourself. Basically take back hold of your electromagnetic field. Some people experience headaches after this, nausea, dizziness, and all of that. It really does make sense considering what your body is going through, and I just don't feel like enough people talk about that aspect of it. As for myself, do I want to get another MRI? I will avoid getting into that tube again for as long as I possibly can. And I only had a pelvic MRI. I cannot imagine that happening to my head. My deepest sympathies go out to anyone who has had an MRI on their head. I think that would be really hard. So after I ate and had some water, I feel fine. I drove home fine. I was in a good mood. There were no kind of residual bad feelings from this. Kind of as soon as I was able to move my body, that feeling of too much energy dissipated. I just wanted to talk about the fact that this was really, really different than what I experienced. So if you have had an MRI and have felt a similar thing, I am happy to hear your story. Please let me know in the comments below, and if you can relate to this experience. So I can't wait to hear more, and thank you for watching this video. Yeah, stay tuned for more exciting medical updates coming your way.